is Claire Pearsall. She's a former Conservative government advisor. She was in the Home Office and is, I think, rather well placed to comment an awful lot of this. Good morning to you again.
Morning.
Let's just, first of all, should we play a little clip of Donald Trump, just because it's quite good fun? Yeah. Let's play Donald Trump talking about how, well, basically, European countries are going to hell.
When your prisons are filled with so-called asylum seekers who repaid kindness, and that's what they did. They repaid kindness with crime. It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. Any system that results in the mass trafficking of children is inherently evil. Yet that is exactly what the globalist migration agenda has done, and it's what it's all about.
And you talk about a globalist migration agenda. You worked in the Home Office. Is there a globalist migration agenda? Or are people, is it just individual people just wanting to make their way to a better country where they can have a better life? But is there, are there left-wing groupings? Is there pressure from, countries like China and Russia and Iran who are actually pushing a lot of this because they know it does completely undermine our basically, how our societies sort of coalesce and gel together?
There is a school of thought that is what is happening. I don't buy that as much. I don't think there is some kind of globalist reset going on. What I do think is that there are gangs involved who wish to destabilise.
Yeah.
Now, it's a slightly different argument. And I think that these aren't just, a gang setting up on their own with one person and setting up some boats. I think that these are properly organised crime groups which...
Well, they're making money from it. They don't have a political agenda.
They don't have a political agenda. They just want to make a load of cash out of it, and that's what they're doing. So, no, I don't buy that. But the most interesting thing about that speech at that point is when you look at the faces of all the other delegates in the room. Yeah, and they're just looking at him, wishing the floor would open up and take him away.
I think here's the funny thing. You think a lot of these countries that really rail against people, like Nigel Farage or Donald Trump and these issues, maybe you should wonder, why is it so many people in your own countries want to leave your basket case countries? I'm trying to think of a polite way of saying it. A lot of these countries a lot of countries in the world are baskets. They're authoritarian, they're poor, they're chaotic, they're corrupt. Maybe you should wonder why all these people want to leave your godforsaken countries to get to the West. Yeah. Maybe there's a reason. Here's the thing. I really understand why someone would want to do that. Sorry, we haven't got enough space for you all, so we're going to have to be a bit more choosy. And I'm saying at this point, we're done. Thank you very much. Move on. Yeah. Sort your own country out. Why don't you try and adopt some of the values and the systems that we've got in this country, and maybe your country would do well. And why don't you stop leaving all your women and children behind and your elderly and coming here? I've become far more, far right on this issue. It's not just, I'm done. I think it's a centrist view that I don't think our country should open its doors to every single person who, from the many billions around the world who want to come here, make a better life, to come here, full stop. And he's quite right. The thing is, the Europeans are finding it very difficult, whether it's Keir Starmer, whether it's Emmanuel Macron or Germany or Italy or wherever, they're finding it very difficult to stop these people arriving. But Donald Trump's got a much longer border. In Mexico, he's able to stop people arriving. He's basically closed that border. He's now deporting people en masse who have no right to be in the country. This is what Nigel Farage and others are talking about. This is not an extreme view. This is kind of what used to be the norm before this. Maybe he's right. Maybe there's an agenda. This whole idea, and there's no doubt at all, a lot of these NGOs, these non-governmental organisations, these charities, they get funding from sort of leftist organisations. A lot of the funding of a lot of the BLM, the transcript, a lot of the things that undermine the cohesion in our society, community relations, pride in our culture and our history. A lot of this is being funded by nefarious groups, nefarious people. A lot funded by China, by Russia, people like that. Yeah. There is. That's not a conspiracy. That is happening. But most migrants are simply moving because they want a better life.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think that having met some of these NGOs as well, they might be funneling the money, but the brains aren't there.
Oh no, they think they're doing good.
Yeah, they're not that sensible.
But that's because you've got an education system, not just at schools but universities, which is telling these people, that you're only a good person if you think that borders are a terrible thing.
Yes, and that climate change is real. You must believe that.
No, not that. Climate change. No, I mean, the climate changes. And we are getting warmer now. Yeah, but coming out of an ice age, of course we're getting warmer. The climate change is a catastrophe for the planet, is the lie. It's not.
Well, I mean, this is it. We have to.
It simply isn't. There's no evidence for that.
Declare there's some kind of climate emergency every 5 minutes, and that's why we need to welcome people in. And I don't buy any of that. I do think that Europe and Europeans as a whole have been far too understanding, welcoming, accepting of all of this movement without thinking about what it does to their population. And now they're starting to go, hold up a second, we don't like it.
I think people have been saying that for a long time, but they've been muttering it to their family members, and they've said it in the pub. And
now they're saying it out loud.
And now they're saying it out loud because, again, we've managed to shift the conversation to actually, it's acceptable to say that. Some people like me have been saying it. I've been writing columns about this since 2000 in the Sunday Express. Of course, we were decried then. I saw it firsthand when I worked in the East End on a local paper a few years before that. I knew what was going on. I knew it was a disaster then.
Yeah,
it's been a disaster ever since, and it's not done any. Particularly the people it's harmed. Actually, is ethnic minority, religious minority groups who are already here in small numbers, perfectly well integrated. Yeah. That's what it's done.
And those communities have really, really suffer now.
Yeah. Well, at the same time as having this conversation, we've got the Home Office losing its latest bid to send one in, one out, and migrant exchange deal with France. I mean, it's not a deportation deal. They literally can't get the fourth person out. I mean, it's an absolute joke. It genuinely, it's laughable. If it wasn't something that would make you cry.
Exactly, especially as they have already sent one Eritrean back already, so it can't be.
Did he forget to mention as well that he was a victim of slavery?
Or did they just not ask him that question? Did they ignore that piece of the paper?
By the way, most teenagers asked to empty the dishwasher think they're a victim of human trafficking and slavery.
I had to ask my 16-year-old to bring down his bin from his room.
How dare you!
Honestly.
Call the police now! Now!
Eye-rolling, proper Kevin the teenager.
Eye-rolling. I genuinely, not in my house.
No, well, I made
not
him...
in my house.
I made him go out and actually put the bins out right at the back, and he was going, but I'm only wearing shorts. I went,
they should put... That's it.
But yes, I mean, he would...
Parenting 101 there, by the way. We should start a parenting podcast,
can we?
Can we please do that?
Yes.
Right, there's an idea for... Right.
Right.
Now, all these people, like experts...
Why?
Let me look at your kids. No.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I once saw an old head of a school that I knew. Okay, genuinely. Okay, it's my daughter's school. Right. She was in the queue in front of me at the supermarket with her two kids having epic tantrums in the queue at the till. And I would normally be the parent, the person who would say, be quiet to them. But I was enjoying it too much, watching the head unable to control her own two children. I'm just standing there, and I know she's thinking, of all the parents to be standing behind me in this queue while my children are doing this, this is the mum I most don't want to be here.
Did she just see your grin?
I'm literally like, we're all just going to pretend I can't see this. But I mean, seriously, control your kids. But there we are. That's it. Yeah. we digress. But look, we can't get rid of these people. It's ridiculous. And what do you make now? Interesting development here on Donald Trump telling Ukraine, take back all your land and then go further. Not quite sure what that means. Yeah. He's also said that NATO should shoot down Russian planes if they get into NATO territory. I mean, by the way, that's literally normal international affairs. But Donald Trump has basically he's talked very warmly about Vladimir Putin. We had that summit in Alaska, literally rolled out the red carpet, allowed him to go in the Beast, his own limo, for goodness sake. Putin saw this as a major, major PR win. But they haven't seen any movement. He's been given a lot of leeway. It looks like Donald Trump's patience for Vladimir Putin is wearing thin. And he basically said, telling Ukraine, take back all your land. Zelensky certainly had a spring in his step when he arrived at a press conference. Today, the Kremlin has pushed back, saying that the idea that Ukraine can retake the territory Russia occupies is an idea that is deeply mistaken. They said the invasion was not an aimless war. But they also said the process of normalising relations with Washington was moving much slower than it had hoped. What do you make of all that?
I mean, again, this is the sort of ongoing saga. Clearly, Trump and Putin have had a little bit of a falling out. Maybe there wasn't a WhatsApp returned or something. Yeah. You get this every
Someone
couple
didn't
of
send
weeks.
flowers.
Exactly. Every couple of weeks. It does depend who the last person Donald Trump has spoken to as to which side he's going to be on. I like the fact that he is standing up for the people of Ukraine, but it was quite interesting when he was asked the question about shooting down of Russian planes, and somebody said, well, would the US go in and back up and help out? And he sort of went, nah, maybe, depends.
And this is the thing, and this comes back to stuff he said in 2018 when he came over and criticising NATO members for not paying their way. He was quite right about it then. He's been quite right about it ever since. They're still not paying their way. I mean, you get the Baltic states, the Estonians, the Polands. They're paying their way, but they are small economies. They understand the threat. But there is this concern now. Yeah, he'll carry on selling arms made in America to NATO countries who can then give them to Ukraine. But he's basically been saying very clearly, this is Europe's problem. I mean, I don't really have a problem with that. It is our problem. I mean, I think it will be the world's problem. I think he's wrong not to think it's also America's problem. But I think for far too long we've expected taxpayers in America to pay for our defence. Certainly, like German taxpayers have got away absolutely scot-free for decades with a peace dividend, not bothering to actually provide proper defences for their country, expecting us. Oh, Ireland and countries like that, by the way. I mean, we're all very strong on the island of, on the, recognising Palestine. Whose army and all that. I mean, really?
And that's the point, isn't it? Whose army? Because I think all European nations, European nations have been incredibly lax at keeping up defence spending because it's been peacetime and we kind of everybody's gone, well, we don't really need to do it. And this is where Trump is right, that you do need to invest in that. You do need to spend money because what happens if a country gets involved.
But military leaders have been saying this for years. They've been saying it's an issue for years.
And it's governments that haven't been able to spend it. But, I mean, do we really want to start a war with Putin? No. Because
we're not starting a war with Putin.
It's not just Europe's war. It will move into other regions as well. But also, Putin can't be allowed to just take the land in Ukraine, because where's he going to go next?
Why are his jets flying over NATO territory, Poland, Estonia,
12 minutes?
Why? That's not an accident. They know. We spoke to a military expert yesterday, made it really, really clear. No, of course they don't do this by accident. It's a load of nonsense. They know what they're doing. He's checking out what our reaction is, and what's our reaction so far? We're not really very sure. No, the response should have been, first time, do that again. We will shoot your jets down. Do it a second time after that, for the third time, we're at war. That will be a declaration of war. When Russian jets in Syria flew into Turkish airspace, they were shot down first time, never did it again.
Do you know how long before they were shot down? 17 seconds.
Yeah. Because they know where they are,
exactly.
And you choose it. And he's testing us, and we are so badly failing that test. This is the thing: we are in very, very dark times. We have so many different threats. We've got Islamic fundamentalism threat, as an existential threat to Israel and the West. It really is. We've got the threat from Russia, clear military threat to our allies. We've got the threat from China. That is going to blow up big time in the next decade. I mean, big time. We are not prepared for it at all. We are just absolutely. We've got the fifth column within. We've got so many people in our own countries who would willingly just give up all of our freedoms and our strengths. Just to sort of, because they're so lily-livered. We've got all these problems, and we've got leaders of virtually all these countries. They might grandstand. I mean, Macron's great at grandstanding, but you need to be able to put your money where your mouth is. Well, you need to be able to put your fighters and your tanks where your mouth is. That's the reality. And I do not. People go, oh, you're a warmonger. No. Putin's the warmonger. Xi Jinping is the warmonger. The Iranian mullahs are the warmongers. Hamas leaders are the warmongers. But your ability to defend your values, your allies, your own nation depend on your willingness and ability to fight back.
Yeah, you need to be able to send out that message, because otherwise, what's the point? If you can sit there so hand-wringing, well, they're not going to listen to that, are they? They only understand
I've not met a serious military expert or strategic thinker who doesn't think we are in 1930s, late 1930s territory right now.
Yeah.
War, I'm afraid, is the norm in global politics. War is the norm. What we've had in Europe for the last, few decades is the abnormal, not the normal, and we need to get to grips. We really do. Let's talk about what is definitely normal in this government, and that is scandals. Whether it's free suits and glasses and dresses for your wife, whether it's your free football tickets, whether it's being dodgy with your mobile phone being stolen, having to resign as transport secretary, being dodgy about your stamp duty payments if you're the deputy prime minister. Minister. What else have I missed? I don't know. It's so difficult to keep up.
Problems in Bangladesh.
Some problems, but your anti-corruption minister facing a corruption probe. I mean, it's my MP, that is. But hi, Tulip, hope you're doing well. I mean, it's just extraordinary. Now we've got question marks over the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. This one, we've gone through a few. This is Morgan McSweeney, who, again, is in the news far too often for someone who's supposed to be a backroom boy. But he's basically is being accused of possibly being involved in criminality, allegedly by the Conservatives who want the police to investigate. This is over £740,000 of donations to an organisation called Labour Together. It was a think tank, basically, aimed at, in the late teens, getting rid of Jeremy Corbyn as leader and then trying to get Keir Starmer elected as he was in 2020 as new leader of the Labour Party. £740,000 weren't declared. Electoral Commission in 2021 fined the organisation, but now we've seen the leaked legal advice that he received about what he should claim about these donations. He says, apparently he said he thought he didn't think they needed to be declared. How any donation wouldn't need to be declared is utterly befuddling to me. But the legal advice basically said it would maybe best to simply base our case as down to an admin error. Now, the Conservatives are saying there is evidence that he had been hiding money, hundreds of thousands of pounds. They call it a scandal. They say this is poor judgment, raising serious questions about the Prime Minister, expressing full confidence in his Chief of Staff. Nothing to see here, Keir, they call him. I like that.
I do, yeah.
May think he can ride this one out as he tried to over the Mandelson-Epstein scandal. Perhaps he's too weak to fire a Chief of Staff who tells him what to think. But they said we're going to get to the truth. They're calling on the police and the Electoral Commission to urgently investigate. Now, the Electoral Commission say this is done and dusted. This does seem to be a new development, though. How dangerous is this?
I think it is dangerous because we are all under the same rules when it comes to donations into political parties for campaigning purposes. You have to declare them. So why would you take legal advice as to whether it should be declared or not?
And why did Darren Grimes, who ran Believe as part of the Vote Leave campaign, young in his 20s, there, now a Reform councillor, why was he dragged over the coals for years with police investigations, Electoral Commission, everything?
But I've seen it in local campaigns as well with leaflets. People going to absolute town to say that you've gone over your allowance. And somebody did in my area by 20
quid.
leaflets.
Buy 20 leaflets.
Yeah.
Explain briefly to people who have more sense than to get involved in politics how this works, because you can set up either if you're like running as an MP as a candidate or a councillor, or if you've got like a body that is working for a political aim, you've got certain amounts of money you're allowed to spend.
You do. Every election campaign will have a limit which you cannot go over. So in general election terms, it isn't a huge limit. I think we're up to about 10 grand, I think. It's not big, especially when you take into account what America spend on campaigning.
Billions, yeah.
But you have to account for every single penny you spend. That's every leaflet, every billboard.
Biro,
every biro, balloon, badge, you name it, has to be accounted for. And
which must be a pain in the backside to do, but nevertheless, you have to do it.
But your election agent is the one that has to sign it off, and they will be
They're legally liable.
Legally liable.
And if you get, for instance, get some central office or Labour Party head office, send a load of free T-shirts with logos on.
God, it's the worst thing ever.
Because that has to be declared somewhere.
Yes, it really does. And the worst thing is if they send a battle bus full of people, because that has to be accounted for.
We've seen that happen with it. But the reason for these laws is
to stop there being any undue influence from parties with larger budgets than others. So everybody is a level playing field. Doesn't matter what side
there's a reason for this. There's a reason for this. Well, we're going to talk a bit more detail about that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. How big an issue is it? I mean, it's just the latest issue. But again, as I said earlier, I don't know why the Tories are gunning for Morgan McSweeney. He's the architect of Labour's Labour victory. He's election victory. He's the architect of pretty much everything apparently that goes on in government right now. He's doing such a brilliant job. If I were you, Tories, I'd try and leave him in place. Just saying. A little bit of free advice to you there from Auntie Julia.